Geoff Miller, Director of Simulation Research and Technology at the Centera Center for Simulation and Immersive Learning at Eastern Virginia Medical School in Norfolk, Virginia. I've been invited to share on 3 topics this Sun meeting. First one being the art and science of debriefing. It's a smaller session that we put out today, and got to kind of share my perspective and experiences over the past 20 years of doing debriefing in medical education and even into the healthcare system itself, which is a challenging prospect for most people. It's the part that is probably less comfortable for most educators. It's certainly not comfortable for most new students who are unaccustomed to the notion of having immediate critical appraisal of performance. So it's a very productive talk, and the notion of doing good debriefing is not something that's easily won. I mean, it is really truly more art than science. And it's an art form that's won through practice and habituation. We know there's certain things that work better than others for different types or styles of students and levels of learners. And we just have to look at the toolbox of available mechanisms to help provide good feedback and information to learners so that they can learn to appreciate the things that work well and carry those forward to future practice and experience, and critically apprise the things that don't go well and use that to benefit and create a performance improvement plan so that they can correct behaviors, skills, or missing knowledge pieces that need to move forward the next time they perform a skill. Again, it's not an easy thing to do for both faculties and students, but it's something that we have to do because that's where the learning occurs, and we just have to get out there and keep practicing to get better at it. The second topic, I co-presented with another colleague here on research around simulation in medical education and grant writing and how to be successful at those things. It's certainly an area that I think more and more people are getting involved with, even from very small centers to large academic institutions. And it's becoming more and more competitive. So it's something that if you're going to make the effort to go into and do a research project, you should probably be thoughtful about it. So we're just trying to give people ideas of how best to approach these things and some lessons learned from both of our perspectives. Mars at Wake Med, mine at University of Miami, and now at Eastern Virginia Medical School. We've learned some valuable lessons along the way about how to be successful and how to not be successful. So it was a nice opportunity to sit with people that are interested in research and share some of these ideas and give them some tools to move forward with and look at different funding opportunities that may be available to different types of projects they're interested in. The third topic is kind of the fun one. It's the opening session called If I Knew Then, which has been kind of an interesting one for me to think about. It really has kind of become a self-reflective piece for me. It's been kind of hard. It's a little schizophrenic in its development because there's been a lot of very interesting events that have occurred in my career coming through this. So it's been a neat opportunity to kind of sit back and think, okay, how did I get to where I am today? And in some cases, wow, why did it happen? Because I can't really put my finger on some of the things, but it's been really neat because I've progressed from a smaller community college system to a larger academic medical system at the University of Miami, working with a center that is reputationally just outstanding, has been one of the powerhouses and leaders in simulation for many, many years. And having the opportunity to work with folks like Dr. Michael Gordon and Barry Eisenberg and just really the all-star team of educational professionals that they put together. That includes Ron Harden, Ian Hart, Bill McGahey, Emil Petrucia, and just an enormous wealth of clinical educators. And that was where I really learned how to be a good educator with simulation. The fascinating thing now is that I'm actually being forced to apply all these lessons because I've now taken on a job where there was not a simulation center. There is not necessarily the faculty understanding or appreciation. We do have good support. We have a lot of enthusiasm, but it's being built from the ground up. So instead of talking about what would be the things that I would do differently and how would I go about it, I'm currently living these experiences and actually reforming some of those ideas where I thought, well, this would be a good thing to replicate. Because I think it's a good thing to replicate does not necessarily mean it's going to work in each context. So it's fascinating to kind of reflect on these things and think about where I've come from and the things that I've accomplished and where I'd like to go. And it'll be fun to kind of talk about it a little bit. It may not be exactly what people are looking for, but hopefully there's some fun stories in there. And it's kind of caused me to take a fascinating academic approach to this and look at the history of simulation. And not necessarily just healthcare, but the history of humans' use of simulation for basically learning. And it's actually a very rich and fascinating history, and it didn't start in the 1960s. It started about 2,000 years ago that we can document and show demonstrations of devices and things. So not only has it been interesting for me to reflect on what I think my experiences and lessons I've learned have been, but to actually look into some of the historical records and things and gather some of this information. We seem to be repeating cycles of implementation and use and development and then stagnation. And right now I feel like we're on this big bow front of the use and full integration of simulation in healthcare. But if we look at history, we've seen this a couple times prior. And are we going to lead up to these same problems that caused it to falter and fail in previous centuries and generations? Or is this the time that we actually take it forward and more fully incorporate and use it in many different instances, not just training and education, but as the tool to model and diagnose system problems within a healthcare network or within provider groups? So there's a tremendous opportunity right now, and there's certainly enough people and technology and resources to take it forward. I think the question is do we? Or do we repeat some of our predecessors' mistakes? So it's kind of a fascinating academic question. We'll see what happens.